I never thought I'd be sitting in a police station at 63 years old, watching my brother-in-law's wife get arrested for stealing nearly $300,000 from my dead sister's children. But life has a way of surprising you, doesn't it? Especially when greed is involved. My name is Linda, and 3 years ago, I lost my baby sister Jennifer to breast cancer. She was only 45. Beautiful, kind, and the best mother to her 2 kids, Tyler and Emma. Before she died, she made me promise to watch over them, to make sure they'd be okay. She left them everything she had worked so hard for, $450,000 in savings, life insurance, and the house she'd bought with her own money before she even met her husband, Mark. She set it all up in a trust with me as the executor. The kids would get access when they turned 25, with allowances for education and emergencies before then. I took that responsibility seriously. Those kids were all I had left of Jennifer. For the first 2 years after her death, everything seemed fine. Mark was grieving, but he was a good father. He worked as an accountant, made decent money, and the kids seemed stable. I checked in weekly, reviewed the trust statements monthly. Everything was in order. The balance grew modestly with interest, sitting safely at around $470,000 with careful management and a small distribution for Tyler's orthodontics. Then Mark met Amber. He introduced her to me at Emma's 6th birthday party, about 18 months ago. She was 35, nearly 13 years younger than Mark, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She worked in real estate, she said, though I later learned she'd only gotten her license 6 months before meeting Mark and had sold exactly 2 houses, both to family friends of her previous boyfriend. I didn't like her immediately, and I felt guilty about it. Who was I to judge? Mark deserved to move on, to find happiness again. Jennifer would have wanted that. But something in my gut twisted when Amber hugged the kids for the first time, calling them my little angels when she'd known them for all of 5 minutes. The way her eyes scanned Jennifer's house, noting the custom cabinets, the renovated kitchen, the expensive furnishings, made my skin crawl. "What a beautiful home," she'd said to Mark, loud enough for me to hear. Jennifer had excellent taste, and she owned it outright. Red flag number 1, but I said nothing. They got married 4 months later, a rushed courthouse wedding that Mark explained away as not wanting to wait when you know it's right. Amber moved into Jennifer's house with Mark and the kids. I tried to be supportive. I tried to see the good in her. She was attentive to Mark, made nice dinners, posted photos of her family all over social media, with captions about being blessed to be a bonus mom. But I noticed things. Small things at first. Emma became quieter. Tyler developed a stutter he'd never had before. When I'd pick them up for our weekly lunch dates, they'd be wearing the same worn clothes, while Amber posted photos of her new designer handbags and weekend getaways. Mark looked exhausted, working longer hours. And Amber? She seemed to glow brighter every day, her jewelry getting more expensive, her car upgraded from a used Honda to a new BMW. I told myself I was being paranoid. Grief makes you suspicious. I was looking for reasons to dislike her because she was living in my sister's house, mothering my sister's children, sleeping in my sister's bed. It wasn't fair to her. Then came the trust statements. As executor, I received quarterly reports from the investment firm managing Jennifer's trust. I'd glance at them, see the balance hovering around $470,000, file them away. But 2 months ago, I actually sat down and read through the details while sorting through my home office. I don't know what made me look closer that day. Maybe Jennifer's spirit was nudging me. Maybe it was just time. The current balance was $392,000. I stared at that number for a full minute. That couldn't be right. We'd only distributed $12,000 total for Tyler's orthodontics and Emma's private tutoring after she'd struggled in school following her mother's death. With interest, the balance should have been higher, not $78,000 lower. My hands shook as I pulled out the previous statements. 6 months ago, $417,000. A year ago, $442,000. 18 months ago, right before Amber came into the picture, $468,000. $76,000 had vanished in 18 months. I called the investment firm immediately. Bradley, the senior advisor who'd set up the trust with Jennifer and me, pulled up the account history. His silence on the other end of the line told me everything before he even spoke. Linda, he said carefully, there have been withdrawal requests. They came through the online portal with proper authorization codes. What kind of withdrawals? Emergency medical expenses for Emma, $12,000. Educational enrichment programs for both children, $8,000. Home repairs necessary for the Children's Safety Foundation issues, electrical upgrades, $22,000. Therapy costs for both children, $15,000. Additional orthodontic work, $6,000. Should I continue? My mouth went dry. Emma's medical emergency? Last December. Hospitalization for pneumonia, the request said. Emma had a cold last December. She missed 2 days of school. I'd brought her chicken soup. The foundation repairs? Last spring. The request included a contractor's estimate. Jennifer's house had been inspected before her death. The foundation was perfect. She'd made sure of that. Bradley, I said slowly, I never authorized any of these withdrawals. Silence. Then, the requests came through Mark's portal access. As the children's father and co-trustee for emergency situations, he has authorization for legitimate expenses with proper documentation. Can you email me copies of all the documentation? Of course. Linda, if there's been fraud, send me everything. I'll call you back. The emails came through 20 minutes later. 53 pages of requests, receipts, and supporting documents spanning 18 months. Mark's digital signature on every authorization form. But as I read through them, my blood turned to ice. The letterhead for Dr. Sarah Chen, child psychologist, listed an address that, when I Googled it, was a nail salon. The contractor's estimate for foundation repairs was signed by Rodriguez & Sons Construction, a company whose website had been created 6 days before the estimate was dated and hadn't been updated since. The hospital bill for Emma's pneumonia came from Street, Ann's Medical Center, which didn't exist. Every single document was fake. Someone had stolen $76,000 from my dead sister's children using forged paperwork, and that someone had access to Mark's trust portal. I sat at my kitchen table until dark, staring at those documents. Mark was a good man. He'd loved Jennifer. He was a dedicated father. He was also terrible with technology, the kind of person who still wrote down his passwords on sticky notes and asked Tyler to help him reset his email. The kind of person who might not notice if someone else accessed his computer. The kind of person whose new wife had real estate connections, knew how to create professional-looking documents, and had expensive taste with no visible means of paying for it. I should have confronted them immediately. But something stopped me. If Amber had stolen $76,000, she wasn't going to stop there. And if I confronted her without proof, Mark might not believe me. He was in love, maybe even desperate to believe his new marriage could work, that his kids could have a mother figure again. Amber was smart enough to cry, to act wounded, to make me look like the jealous sister who never accepted her. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. The next day, I called my friend Patricia, a retired FBI agent I'd known since college. Over coffee, I showed her everything. She studied the documents with a trained eye, then looked up at me with grim recognition. "This is good work," she said. "Professional-level forgery. Whoever did this knows what they're doing. The letterheads are convincing, the language is correct, even the invoice numbering follows standard formats. But look here." She pointed to one of the contractor estimates. "This license number? It belongs to a real contractor in Ohio. But the address is fake, and the signature doesn't match the real contractor's file signature with the state board. Your sister-in-law, if it is her, copied a legitimate contractor's information and altered just enough to make it look real. Can we prove it was her?" "Not yet. But we can set a trap." Patricia leaned forward. "Keep monitoring the account. Document everything. And I mean everything. When Amber goes shopping, when she takes trips, every expensive purchase. Match it up with the trust withdrawals if you can. Build a timeline. And—" She hesitated. "You need to get into that house. See if there's any evidence on their computer. Files, emails, anything linking Amber to these fake companies. Breaking and entering? Pat, I'm 63 years old. You have a key, don't you? You're the kid's aunt. Nothing illegal about visiting your niece and nephew while their parents are out." She was right. I still had the key Jennifer gave me years ago, just in case. I'd never used it without calling first. But desperate times and all that. The following Saturday, I knew Mark was taking Tyler to a baseball tournament 2 hours away. They'd be gone all day. I'd seen Amber's Instagram story that morning. She was at a spa day with friends, champagne and massage photos with the location tagged. Emma was at a friend's house for a playdate. The house would be empty. My hands shook as I let myself in through the front door. It felt wrong, creeping through Jennifer's house like a thief. But I wasn't stealing. I was protecting her children. I went straight to Mark's home office. His computer was password protected, but I knew Mark. I tried Jennifer's birthday. Nothing. The kids' birthdays. Nothing. Then I tried his and Jennifer's wedding anniversary. The computer unlocked. My heart pounded as I searched through his files. Email records, bank statements, saved passwords. Mark's Trust Portal login was saved in his browser's password manager, just as I suspected. Anyone with access to this computer could have logged in and submitted those withdrawal requests. Then I found a folder labeled House Expenses 2024. Inside were dozens of files, many with names like Foundation, Estimate, Final, PDF, and Medical, Bill, Emma, Stans, PDF. These were the forgeries. The originals, before they'd been submitted to the trust. But I needed more. I needed proof that Amber created them. I opened Mark's email and searched for anything from or to Amber. Hundreds of messages. I scrolled through mundane conversations about groceries and dinner plans. Then I found a folder he'd created called Amber, Bills. Inside was an email chain from 6 months ago. Amber had sent Mark a message, "Honey, I organized all the kids' expense receipts for you. They're in that folder on your desktop. The trust people said you can just upload them through the portal. I already logged in and started the forms to save you time. You work so hard. Just review and hit submit when you get a chance. Love you." She'd done it. She'd created the fake documents, put them on his computer, logged into his portal, filled out the forms, and had him unknowingly approve them. And she'd done it over and over again. I took photos of everything with my phone. Every document, every email, every file. My hands were steadier now, fueled by rage. This woman had manipulated my grieving brother-in-law, stolen from my dead sister's children, and done it all with a smile and a champagne glass in her hand. As I was closing out of his email, one more folder caught my eye. Amber, Personal. I shouldn't have opened it. It felt like too much of a violation. But I'd come this far. Inside were more emails. These were different. Messages to someone named Derek, marked with little heart emojis. I opened the most recent one, from just 3 days ago. Baby, just a few more months and we're golden. Mark still has no clue. The life insurance money is almost done. I've got about $220K out so far. Once I hit $300K, I'll file for divorce, claim half the house value, and we can finally be together like we planned. The kids' trust was genius. No one questions expenses for dead mom's children. Mark's too sad and guilty to even look. I'll probably clear another $100K before anyone notices. Then we're out. Cabo. Like you said. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again instead of his. He's so boring in bed. Miss you. I felt physically sick. I photographed the entire email chain, dozens of messages spanning back 18 months, right to when Amber first met Mark. This had been planned from the beginning. Derek, whoever he was, had helped her research Mark, find out about the trust, and target him specifically. She'd never loved him. She'd never cared about Tyler and Emma. It was all about the money. Jennifer's money. The money she'd worked so hard to leave for her babies. I carefully closed everything, exactly as I'd found it, and left the house. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely drive. I went straight to Patricia's house and showed her everything. "This is enough," she said grimly. "This is fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. We need to get this to the police and a lawyer immediately. Don't tell Mark yet. We need to move fast before she realizes anyone knows." That night was the longest of my life. I wanted to call Mark, to warn him, to protect him from what was coming. But Patricia was right. If we spooked Amber, she might run. She might destroy evidence. She might withdraw even more money before we could stop her. The next morning, Patricia went with me to meet with both a criminal attorney and the police. I handed over everything: the fake documents from the trust firm, the photos of the files on Mark's computer, the emails to Derek. They listened grimly, took notes, and asked careful questions. "The trust firm will need to file a formal complaint," the detective said. "We'll need to verify the documents are actually fraudulent, contact the fake companies, prove they don't exist or didn't issue those bills. And we'll need to bring Mark in to confirm he didn't knowingly submit false claims." "He didn't know," I said firmly. "He was manipulated." "That's what the evidence suggests. But we need his statement." That afternoon, they called Mark into the station. I wasn't there for that conversation, but Patricia told me later that Mark had been devastated. He'd sat in the interview room and wept as they showed him the evidence. He'd had no idea. He'd trusted Amber completely, signed whatever she put in front of him, believed every word she said. The detective showed him the emails to Derek. Mark had to leave the room to vomit. They arrested Amber 2 days later at the house. I made sure Tyler and Emma were at my place when it happened. They didn't need to see their stepmother led away in handcuffs. But I watched from my car down the street as the police pulled up, as Amber answered the door in her yoga pants and designer tank top, as her face transformed from confusion to rage when they read her rights. She screamed the whole way to the police car. I could hear her from down the block, cursing Mark, cursing me, cursing the ungrateful brats who should have been thankful she even pretended to care about them. That's when I knew we'd done the right thing. The legal process took months. Amber's boyfriend Derek turned out to be her accomplice. He'd created many of the fake documents and had previous convictions for fraud in 2 other states. They'd worked together before, targeting widowers and divorcees with money. Mark had been their biggest score. The forensic accountants traced every dollar. The total came to $283,000 stolen from the trust, plus another $47,000 that Amber had taken from Mark's personal accounts by forging his signature on credit card applications and bank transfers. He'd been so buried in work and grief that he hadn't noticed the missing money. In court, Amber tried to claim she'd done nothing wrong, that Mark had approved everything, that the expenses were legitimate, but the evidence was overwhelming. The fake companies didn't exist. The medical emergencies never happened. The emails to Derek laid out the entire scheme in her own words. The judge was not sympathetic. Amber was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Derek got 15 years. And they were ordered to pay back every penny, though the prosecutor warned us we'd likely never see most of it. Amber had spent it all on cars, jewelry, vacations, and clothes. There was nothing left to recover. But the trust company had insurance for exactly this kind of situation. Within 6 months, the trust was restored to its full amount, plus the interest we would have earned. Tyler and Emma's future was secure again. The emotional recovery took longer. Mark was shattered. He couldn't believe he'd been so blind, so stupid, so willing to trust someone who'd lied from day one. He went to therapy, started rebuilding his relationship with his kids, and slowly came back to himself. He sold Jennifer's house. There were too many bad memories now, and bought a smaller place where they could start fresh. Tyler's stutter went away. Emma started smiling again. They stopped asking when Amber was coming back. Last week was the 3-year anniversary of the arrest. Mark brought the kids over for dinner, and we looked through old photo albums of Jennifer. Tyler, who's 13 now, asked me something I'd been dreading. "Aunt Linda," he said quietly, "did you know right away that Amber was bad?" I thought about lying, about protecting him from the truth that sometimes we ignore our instincts because we want to believe the best in people. But these kids deserved honesty. "I had a feeling," I admitted. "Something felt off from the very first time I met her, but I didn't trust my gut. I thought I was being judgmental. I almost let her get away with it because I didn't want to believe what I was sensing." "But you figured it out," Emma said. "You saved us. I did what your mom asked me to do. I protected you." Mark reached over and squeezed my hand, his eyes wet. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up, for trusting your instincts when it mattered. That's the lesson I've learned through all of this. Trust your gut. When something feels wrong, it usually is. When someone seems too good to be true, they probably are. When the pieces don't quite fit together, keep looking until you understand why. Grief makes us vulnerable. Loss makes us desperate for connection, for healing, for moving forward. And there are people in this world who will exploit that vulnerability without a second thought. They'll smile and lie and steal and destroy lives, all while posting perfect photos on social media and playing the role of loving spouse or parent. But there are also people who will fight for you, who will protect you, who will sit at a kitchen table at 63 years old, staring at financial statements and forged documents, and refuse to let the bad guys win. Jennifer trusted me to watch over her children. I almost failed them by ignoring the signs, by trying to be fair to someone who deserved no fairness. But in the end, I kept my promise to my sister. Tyler starts high school next month. Emma's thriving in her art classes. Mark is dating again, slowly, with a therapist's guidance and a lot more caution. The trust sits safely at $512,000 now, growing steadily for their futures. And Amber? She's 7 years into her sentence in a federal prison in Pennsylvania. She'll be 52 when she gets out, if she serves her full term. She sends letters occasionally to Mark, claiming she's changed, that she's sorry, that she really did love him. He burns them without reading them. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what would have happened if I hadn't looked at those trust statements that day, if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I'd convinced myself I was just a bitter, jealous sister-in-law who couldn't accept her brother-in-law's new wife. Amber would have stolen every penny. She would have destroyed Mark financially. She would have left Tyler and Emma with nothing of their mother's love and hard work. And she would have moved on to the next vulnerable widower, the next target, the next con. But I did look. I did trust my gut. And $330,000, 2 children's futures, and 1 man's life were saved because of it. So, if you're reading this, or listening to this, and something feels off in your life, a friend who borrows money and never pays it back, a family member who's suddenly too interested in your finances, a new romantic partner who seems more interested in your assets than your heart, pay attention to that feeling. Don't be like me and wait. Don't convince yourself you're being paranoid. Don't worry about seeming judgmental or unfair. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself and the people you love. And remember that the best con artists are the ones who make you feel guilty for suspecting them in the first place. Jennifer used to say that the universe sends us warning signs, but we have to be willing to see them. She was right. The signs were there from the beginning. Amber's interest in the house value, her expensive lifestyle on a modest income, the kids' growing anxiety, Mark's increasing exhaustion. I just had to open my eyes and trust what I was seeing. That's the story. That's how I caught my brother-in-law's wife stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from my dead sister's children. That's how I learned that sometimes the person with the sweetest smile and the most caring Instagram posts is actually the most dangerous person in the room. And that's how I kept my promise to Jennifer, even 3 years after she was gone. The kids still visit her grave every month. We plant flowers, tell her stories about school and friends and life. And every time I whisper the same thing. I kept them safe, Jenny. Just like I promised. They're going to be okay. Because in the end, that's all that matters. Not the money, not the revenge, not even the justice, though that felt pretty good. What matters is that 2 kids who lost their mother didn't lose their future too. What matters is that love real, protective, fierce love won over greed. Jennifer would be proud. And that means everything.